Chapter 6, Your Passive Income Vehicle, Double-Digit ROI. A stellar management team handles the day-to-day business of property ownership and rentals. You maintain the control, check in monthly on your investments, and make executive decisions on buying and selling. Then you let your trusted team do the rest, thereby reducing your time commitment to a few hours a month. And side note, just as a bonus, this is exactly how I run personally my entire portfolio, and it's how I buy hundreds of additional properties every single year without eating up more of my time. And the seventh and final benefit of investing in real estate, combined interest that creates double-digit ROIs, making financial freedom a reality. I saved the best for last because this one is truly my absolute favorite. Every year that you collect cash flow, your property appreciates, and your renters pay down the mortgage. All of this can combine together to form an impressive ROI that outpaces all traditional investments. This section is a little longer because we'll need to calculate the net positive monthly cash flow. You will need this number to calculate each of the three ROIs that we will then be combining later in this example. Here's a quick reminder of the ROI formula to use for our calculations. Remember that if you can take all the money that you made, called the total gain, and you can divide it by the total investment of what you put in and multiply it by 100, it's going to give you the total ROI. First up is the net cash flow calculation. All right, here we go. We're going to do a really important example. You're going to want to follow along because as you become an investor, you need to understand combined interest in action. I'm going to give you all the variables on a very simple deal, and I'm going to help you calculate these three simple ROIs that will help you understand when you combine them together, the real money that you're going to make. This is simple math that you need to be able to do if you're serious about becoming an investor. Here we go. Let's say that you purchase a single family home for $200,000. And let's also assume that you're going to make a 20% down payment, which would be $40,000. Let's also assume that you need $10,000 more for closing costs as well as reserves for a total investment of $50,000. Let's evaluate how these three financial benefits combine to form an overall 25% ROI on this property. Here are the relevant numbers that you need to be aware of. You got a purchase price of $200,000. You have a down payment of 20%, which is $40,000. You have closing costs and reserves of $10,000. So your total investment is going to be that $40,000 down payment plus the $10,000 for closing costs and reserves for a total of $50,000. We're also going to assume that your monthly rent, meaning what the tenant's going to pay, is $1,600 a month, and that your monthly mortgage payment is $1,000 a month. So your gross positive monthly cash flow is basically subtracting the $1,600 of monthly rent from the $1,000 mortgage, which leaves you $600 left over every single month. Now let's calculate the net positive monthly cash flow, because remember, $600 a month is a gross cash flow, but we're going to assume that there are $267 in expenses, and that might be for property taxes, property insurance, property management fees, repairs, or vacancies. So if I take my $600 a month of gross cash flow and I subtract out all of these expenses that at some point will come out, I'm left with $333 a month. Now let's calculate our ROI based on these figures. Number one, we're going to calculate the cash on cash ROI. Next, we're going to do the principal reduction ROI, and then finally the appreciation ROI. And if you add all three of these together, it's going to help you figure out what your total ROI is. Number one, cash on cash ROI, 8%. This ROI takes into account the positive cash flow that you earn after using rent to pay expenses on the property. To calculate this ROI, you're going to need the total gain for the year, or the yearly positive cash flow. Now we know that the net positive monthly cash flow gain is $333 a month. You're going to times that by 12 months, and it's going to tell you that it's $4,000 a year. With this, we can now calculate the ROI on the cash on cash. You see, we're going to take that $4,000 total gain and we're going to divide the gain, remember, by what you put in, which is $50,000. 4,000 divided by 50,000 times 100 equals 8% cash on cash ROI. Now, this is just a part of the total ROI. And this ROI is important because it tells you that if you put $50,000 out, you're going to receive cash in hand about $4,000 back. Next, we have another ROI that we're going to add. This is your principal reduction ROI, 5%. This ROI comes from your renters paying the mortgage every single month. With a 30-year mortgage, a portion of each payment to the bank goes towards interest, and a portion also goes towards paying down the principal. I love having tenants help pay down my principal because someday I'm going to sell that house and I'm going to receive tremendous gains because of it. This factors into part of my total ROI. The math is a little bit complex on this one because of the way that banks do their amortization schedules. By the way, an amortization schedule shows how much money you pay into principal and interest over time, and it's a number that fluctuates and changes. In the beginning, most of your payment to the bank is for interest, and a little bit will pay down the principal, but at the end of the mortgage life cycle, most of the money goes to principal and very little to interest. But on average, for a 30-year mortgage of a house priced below the median, the annual principal reduction ROI is 5%. So we're not going to calculate that one. You're just going to assume that it's approximately 5%. Now we're going to go for the appreciation ROI, the third ROI calculation, and we're going to assume with this math that it's going to come out to 12% in this example. You see, this ROI comes from the value of the home increasing over time. For more than 50 years, the average home value in America has increased 4.85% annually. Let's assume, for the sake of being conservative, that the home in this example is appreciating at only 3%. To calculate appreciation ROI, we need to determine the annual appreciation. Let's take a look at the annual appreciation on this $200,000 property at 3%. Literally, it's $200,000 times 0.03, and it will tell me that my annual appreciation is scheduled to be $6,000 a year. So how does this figure factor into my appreciation ROI? If the home increases $6,000 in value over a year, let's use our trusted ROI formula once again to do the math. $6,000 in total annual appreciation divided by $50,000 for my total investment going out times 100 equals 12% appreciation ROI. So for the final step, let's combine the total ROI. We've got 8% from the cash on cash ROI. We have 5% from the principal reduction from renters basically paying down the mortgage. And we've got 12% in appreciation. Add those three numbers together, and what do you get? You get a 25% annual ROI on this investment. The math is simple on this one. We're just adding together the three previous ROIs that we calculated. The 8% cash on cash ROI, the assumed 5% principal reduction ROI, and the 12% appreciation ROI in this particular market, and that gives us the 25%. Also, just note for a second that there are markets that you can invest in with a pro where you're not just getting 3%. You can get 5, you can get 8, you can get 10. And if you hold out with high standards for investing in the best markets, that's going to shoot your overall ROI up through the roof and help you achieve wealth a lot faster. I truly hope that this straightforward example and simple math accurately demonstrates how real estate provides stable and predictable double-digit ROIs when you combine all the ways that make you money on your portfolio, with one exception. We are not calculating the tax benefit. Just be aware that that is one more benefit that is going to make your ROI a little bit sexier. By the way, the reason why we don't factor in your tax benefits into the ROI is because they're different for all people. I don't really know what your tax situation is, so we're just figuring out what your ROI is before we add in that benefit. All right, we're moving on to number 2, potential energy ingredient, the 6 criteria for selecting the best strategy. Understanding why real estate is beneficial is one matter. Learning what strategies will make each of these benefits work for you is a different matter altogether. When I started my real estate journey, my mentors were engaged in a cornucopia of real estate transactions, from flips and foreclosures to land developments and commercial deals. I quickly became obsessed with determining which of these real estate strategies was really going to be best for me, and I needed some answers. So first, I asked my mentors which strategies they recommended. Imagine my disappointment when none of them would give me a definitive response. They all said it was dependent on what I valued most. What does that even mean? Well, it turns out it's actually pretty straightforward. I had to decide my priorities that fit the unique goals that I set and the expectations I had for investing in real estate. You see, the most profitable strategy might also be the riskiest, or maybe it's the more time-intensive one than you bargained for. You may be more or less risk averse than the next guy. You might want to be hands-on with your real estate investing so that you can save money by doing all the day-to-day management, or you might want to be passive and purchase real estate from a beach in Tahiti. After I realized how these different expectations changed the type of real estate investor I would be, I did some soul searching and I asked myself what my investing standards were, or in other words, what priorities were driving the sports car. I came up with 6 criteria, and then I measured where I fell on each spectrum. Number 1, time investment. Do you want a strategy that uses a majority of the work week or a bare minimum? I was looking for an investment that required the absolute least amount of my time. I was not interested in being a landlord. I would gladly pay someone else to do the day-to-day work of managing my properties. So for me, that time investment needs to be low in pursuit of that perfect strategy. Number 2, effort investment. Do you want management of the property and process to be complex or easy? I'm always interested in the least amount of effort. I don't want a property that is so high maintenance that it causes my total ROI to decrease from the sheer amount of effort that it takes to manage it. So for me, my effort investment needs to be low. Number 3, risk level. Do you want the most risk or the least risk? For me personally, I was looking for the real estate strategy that had the least risk while certainly making me the most money. So for me, that risk level needed to be set real low. Number 4, profit level. Do you want it to make a lot of money or just enough to supplement your income? I personally was seeking a strategy to make enough money that I could quit my job. So yes, I wanted the most profitable strategy. Number 5, market conditions. Do you want your investment to work only in good markets, or do you want it to work in any kind of market? The properties that I selected had to produce a double-digit ROI, whether the market was up or down, because I was going to leave my job and I wanted to rely on that cash flow to fund my lifestyle. So for me, I need this strategy, whatever it is, to work in any market condition. And number 6, this strategy has to provide value. In other words, do I want this to help or hurt people? I know this seems a little bit like a no-brainer. Still, anyone who has ever dealt with unethical or dishonest people knows that providing value to others is not at the top of everyone's list. For me, any transaction in which I engage must offer a valuable service or benefit to myself and others. After I determined where I landed on each spectrum, I compared the top 30 real estate strategies against each other based on these 6 criteria. I then selected the real estate strategy that I've now been using with massive success for 18 years in all market conditions. Are you ready for it? Good, because it's ingredient number 3. Potential energy ingredient number 3. The number 1 strategy for building your portfolio. Based on these 6 criteria, a reliable strategy with massive returns emerged, and it's now the one I teach all of my coaching clients. My winning real estate strategy is the following. Purchase entry-level single-family homes in the best markets below the median with a short-term buy and hold strategy of approximately 5 years. This is the strategy that I use to create financial freedom by my mid-20s and has since allowed me to grow a nationwide team of 200 experts who help other investors utilize the same strategy. Let's take a closer look at each of the 4 elements of my strategy that work together to make it so effective at consistently producing double-digit ROIs. Element number 1, purchase entry-level single-family homes. Entry-level single-family homes represent the American dream, the most popular real estate, always in the highest demand. We're talking about 3 to 4 bedroom, 1 to 2 bathroom homes in desirable neighborhoods, nice school districts, low crime, basically American suburbia. Element number 2, purchase below the median. If you purchase homes below the median, you will possess the most desirable real estate with the greatest demand. This price range also experiences the most significant growth. The simplest way to think about median home price is what the average person can afford. From the time the housing market recovered after the 2008 bubble burst until about mid-2020, the median home price hovered near $250,000. Since then, it has risen and is expected to continue doing so. But even when another correction happens, remember that this investing strategy is designed to work in all market conditions. Being under the median also keeps you reasonably safe from a recession. Homes above the median decrease the most in value, like I mentioned earlier. In a downturn, single-family homes below the median are the most resilient. In a sense, they are recession-proof, given that in a down economy, middle America will still need a place to live. Element number 3, purchase in the best markets. Most investors purchase homes in their backyard, and indeed, you can find great deals nearby. However, suppose you've saved a considerable amount of money in your armored truck and you want to consistently access only the highest ROIs available. In that case, you will need to invest in the markets nationwide that have the best advantages, and you may or may not be living in one of those markets. After buying and selling my first round of properties, I determined that the amount of time that it took to manage the homes in my backyard required more time than I was personally willing to invest. I wanted passive, not active real estate investments. So I did some experimenting and I discovered something interesting. Owning rentals in the top performing out-of-state markets earned the same double-digit ROIs as my local lease options. However, the national strategy ended up being the more passive of the two. And so we have a winner. I'll take the more passive investing option every single time. The US has over 324 defined real estate markets. A select number of these markets at any given time are experiencing the highest population increase, migration, and job growth, all great things for rental property owners. Markets also vary in other macroeconomic forces that determine how well your investments produce cash flow and appreciate. Every 5 to 10 years, the top markets shift to different parts of the country. It's essential to keep up with these changes and know where your investment dollars will have the most impact. And as a special bonus, you can go to kriskrohn.com/markets to learn more about the current top markets available today. Element number 4, utilize a short-term buy and hold strategy. The highest profitability on a single-family home occurs in the first 5 years of the hold before your ROI begins to diminish. As a result, I generally sell off and multiply my portfolio every 4, 5, 6, or 7 years. The ultimate goal is to double my portfolio every 5 years on average. If I start with 5 homes today, my goal is to trade them for 10 homes in the next 5 years or so. Now, for any of you that might be wondering, Kris, what is a buy and hold real estate strategy? Buy and hold real estate is an investment strategy where an investor buys a property and holds it for an extended period of time rather than, say, buying the property and then flipping it right away. When you utilize my strategy, you will be selling a property within 4 to 7 years of purchasing it. But in the meantime, this will be a source of cash flow, tax benefits, and appreciation. Understanding the 7 benefits of real estate investing and the 6 criteria for selecting the best strategy led to my customized strategy that works for most real estate investors. When I was brand new to the real estate game, I set my goal at 20 homes with approximately $500 each of cash flow to produce $10,000 a month. That was the magic number that allowed me to quit my job and be well on my way towards creating deeper financial freedom. And the rest, as they say, is history. It only takes the first property to get you hooked. Once you experience it, the feeling of making money while you sleep is one that you will never want to live without. Which path should you take? The more investors I've worked with over the years, the more I've discovered that ultimately two things determine what kind of investor you're going to be. Number one, it's the amount of capital that you have. And number two, the level of involvement that you want. The first path is being an active real estate investor. If you wish to be hands-on in the real estate game, focus on local lease option deals. Whether you have the money to buy real estate really doesn't matter. There's always a way to buy as long as you have the proper training and the right mentor. I started with literally nothing and built a meaningful portfolio with this local lease option strategy. And if you want to learn more about executing a local lease option strategy in only an hour, I want you to check out my free digital masterclass, How to Make $5,000 in 30 Days, which breaks everything down for you step by step. You can sign up at kriskrohn.com/lease option. Path number two is to be a passive real estate investor. If you want to be a passive investor, seek out the highest ROI rentals in the best markets. This requires a more significant reserve in your armored truck. Suppose you have accumulated savings in 401ks, IRAs, bank accounts, home equity. In that case, you may already have all that you need to become a passive real estate investor. I recommend connecting with my team and taking next steps. Any successful investor knows that the people they choose to surround themselves with makes the difference between fleeting luck and sustainable success. This is why I began developing a team that I couldn't find anywhere else in the marketplace. As I continued leveraging my passive strategy to build my wealth, I discovered that my team could facilitate more deals than I could ever possibly purchase independently. And that's when I started creating this concept of becoming a facilitator for other real estate investors, from newbies to even the more experienced. My team continues to expedite passive real estate deals in the best markets on turnkey rentals and double those portfolios every 5 years. And even if you have no money to invest in real estate yet, there are still ways to tap into a passive strategy and build a successful portfolio. Build the foundation now so you are ready once you've gathered your reserves. Just as with fashion or home decor style, you may be surprised to learn that every person has their own unique real estate style that suits them best. To learn more about how to enact a hands-on versus hands-off strategy, check out this bonus titled, What's Your Real Estate Style? You can find it at kriskrohn.com/style. And if you want to learn more from my investment team about building a winning portfolio, you can contact us at kriskrohn.com/portfolio. Excuses are rooted in fear. It's easy to assume that lack of knowledge, money, luck, or timing are the reasons why people give up on real estate investing. Surprisingly, that is not the case. These are just excuses that people tell themselves to justify their decisions to jump ship. Don't sell yourself short. The reality is that most people do have what it takes. So before you conclude this powerful chapter, we need to address the elephant in the room. I'm talking, of course, about a little thing known as fear. The only time fear serves any purpose is when you're in danger, like being chased by a mountain lion would qualify. Other than that, fear is actually harmful. Fear stifles dreams, dampens bright futures, and robs you of joy. And still, I know what you're thinking, right? What if? What if I lose all my money? What if the economy tanks? What if one of my properties stays vacant too long? What if my renter destroys the place? What if I fail? All of these what ifs represent so much fear. From my research and from thousands of conversations over the years, I've discovered the top 5 reasons why real estate fails to deliver for many who dabble in it. Spoiler alert, These reasons are all based on emotions like fear, not logic. Number one, they give up too soon. From a young age, we're programmed to quit when things get tough. Somewhere in our preteen or teenage years, people start telling us that we can't do things. And then for some reason, we actually believe them. So we try something a few times, and if it fails to deliver, we chalk it up as an inevitable failure. You fail, assume you're just no good at this investing thing, and give up. Let me tell you that you're capable of doing so much more. Real success in life takes more than just a few attempts. The number one reason for real estate failure is simply giving up too soon. Don't be a quitter. Trust the process. Number two, they lack motivation. You need practice and training to stretch outside of your comfort zone, to go above and beyond. You also need a reason to make that effort. You have to be able to see what that effort will bring. You have to recognize that the steps you take now will bring you financial freedom in the not too distant future. You have to want that freedom. Number three, they doubt their abilities. Self-doubt can be one of our biggest enemies. And if you're hanging around with the wrong people, people who don't push you to go further, then you need to find some new friends because you can do this. Number four, they assume the worst. If you've already made up your mind that you're going to fail, then I promise you that you're going to prove yourself correct. Believe you'll fail, and you will every single time. You've got to tell yourself that no matter what, you can keep going, and then you're going to get there. And number five, they exhibit the wrong thinking. Everything comes back to mindset, and I mean everything. The most important real estate that you own is between your ears. Train your mind. Tell yourself that you can do anything and everything. A coach or mentor can see what you can't. So find one and then trust them. Lone wolves die alone. With the right mindset and help from a capable mentor, you can be more than you realize. When you move past your fears, you realize how much you have to gain by investing in real estate. But, and this is the big but, it has to be done right. In my book, The Strait Path to Real Estate Wealth, I document the journey that enabled me to arrive at the battle-tested real estate strategy that we just discussed. It's critical to select the proper real estate strategy and then set it in motion. It's the only proven way to immediately start earning double-digit returns on the money that you have in your reserve vehicle. So even if you aren't sure what kind of investor you want to be, active, passive, local, or national, start building your real estate portfolio now. Don't wait. If you think double-digit ROIs are impressive, you're going to love the next chapter. I will show you how to shift to a triple-digit ROI by doing the opposite of what most investors do, by leveraging even more risk, not less. Let's keep going, and we're going to pick up the pace from here. All right, we made it to the end of chapter 6. Let's check in on what we've learned. Number one, within a year of investing in real estate, I was hooked thanks to the massive double-digit ROI and increased cash flow. Number two, real estate investing is only as lucrative as you make it with number one, reserves you bring to the table, two, the knowledge you gain, and ideally from an expert mentor in the industry. Number three, real estate investing has 7 benefits: appreciation, cash flow, leverage control, tax benefits, market resilience, passive investing, and combined ROI. Number 4, there are 6 criteria to consider when selecting the right real estate strategy for you: time investment, effort investment, risk comfort level, profit goals, market conditions, and desired value. Number 5, after years of research and experimentation, I determined the ideal strategy for building a passive real estate portfolio, and it's to purchase single-family homes below the median in the nation's best markets as a short-term buy and hold. And finally, number 6, the type of investor you will be is determined by your available capital and the level of involvement that you wish to have, aka active or passive investing. Quote time: given a 10% chance of 100 times payoff, you should take that bet every time. Jeff Bezos.